250,000 British Columbians and potentially up to 500,000 Canadians are potentially subject to what the government feels is a crime more heinous than terrorism. Conspiracy to commit terrorism has a maximum of 10 years. Most violent crimes have maximums of 10 to 15 years. And the government is trying to send a message to the courts and to the people that growing marijuana, the benign, beautiful marijuana plant that we all adore, many of us worship, many of us celebrate with, that many have made part of our lives for our entire life, that growing that plant, which by the way is non-toxic, couldn't kill you in any quantity, not known to ever cause death to anyone, known to bring relief to millions of people all over Canada. 164 million people around the world use marijuana. It's the largest, quote, illegal activity committed daily and regularly around the world according to the United Nations, and it's the largest consumption. I mean, the marijuana industry is worth more than any single cash crop industry, including lumber and fishing in Canada. So we have to acknowledge that this is a terrible injustice. Well, I'm sure we all do acknowledge it, and that we have to do something about it. I'm urging every one of you to get involved with the Marijuana Party of Alberta and the Marijuana Party of Canada, because there's a federal election coming up next spring, and the government, even if they lose all these battles that make marijuana legal, they will do anything to recriminalize it. The reaction in Parliament will be strong and severe because they fear the American government. Now I know our American cousins would immediately, after 6 months of seeing Canada in a legal environment, would be crazy not to adopt the same system themselves. Millions of college kids from America will come up here and they'll see how groovy and great Canada is and how tolerant and wonderful. Let's face it, this is a country that's superior in every way to the United States, and it drives the Bush administration crazy. It's safer here. Our schools are better here. Our people are politer here. Our pot is cheaper here. Our streets are safer here, thanks to the offices over there. This is a better country than the United States, and I'm never afraid to say so. But the United States can do so like any other country. They can emulate us, and they will emulate us when we make marijuana, when we affirm that marijuana is legal like we already know it is, and when we fight to keep it that way. You know, normally that worries me, but I know everybody across Canada needs the rain, especially in the West, so bring it on. And besides, it adds some emphasis to it. I sort of think AC/DC's Thunderstruck is starting now. Who's got the time, by the way? 10 minutes. 10 minutes, boy. I could talk a lot in 10 minutes. Sure. How you doing? Yeah. Well, I hope you get one of our brochures. By the way, just a little break here. Anybody doesn't have a brochure, please step forward. It explains what I'm doing, the purpose of the tour. It outlines the legal court decisions that have led me to come to you to explain that marijuana is legal. It's been struck from the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. And I also have... Yeah, you can do that. I'll try and... difficult to sign those while I'm speaking, but... Yes, I am. And, anybody else need a brochure? Hello, Grant. Grant Krieger, another Canadian hero. A great hero of mine. He's done the dirty work, the dirty, honorable, noble work that is so necessary in this country. Grant actually has already got the Alberta Court of Appeal, the highest judicial body in Alberta. Grant has already got them to have suspended cannabis from the schedule also, but unlike Ontario, the Alberta Court of Appeal stayed that decision, meaning it's not in force and effect until it goes to the Supreme Court. The Ontario Court of Appeal did not accept the government's argument for stay and made it effective immediately after May 16th. So that is why courts in Ontario are not prosecuting any marijuana possession offenses. And by the way, it is still a happy summer no matter what happens, because fewer people have been charged in the last 3 months for marijuana possession than any other time in the last 35 years because of this decision. Police officers, courts are very reluctant right now to pursue any kind of marijuana possession. There was a big smoke out in front of City TV in Toronto yesterday where people were smoking on the streets, giving out brochures, and the police officers came by and said that if they kept doing that all day long, then they would come back and take away their pot. And even then, they still haven't done that. Last I spoke to them, no officer has taken their pot, which they can't do. As I keep saying, marijuana is as legal as tomatoes and lettuce right now under Canadian law. It has been suspended from the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, and this is not made up. It has been validated by several courts. I just want you to think about what a legal environment would be. When people say, you know, there's a poll out that says most people favor lower penalties for possession, but still 60% of Canadians favor harsh penalties for growing marijuana. And I think that's because right now, people are under the perception a lot of marijuana is grown by criminal organizations. We must explain to these people that in a legal environment, it'll be grown outdoors in greenhouses on Alberta farms, in Alberta backyards, and will be taken away. Criminal organizations don't get into legal businesses because they can't compete with just the regular profit that ordinary businesses make. And that's what we want. We want to see greenhouses all across Alberta filled with different kinds of marijuana that are grown organically and chemical free. And I see in my future, I see places like Starbucks with 40 or 50 different kinds of marijuana selling for $35 to $65 an ounce with GST and PST, and the people who produce it are paying income tax and contributing to the system. After all, it's not, we don't want special privilege. We want to be welcomed into the family of Canadians who have the same rights under the Charter of Rights. We want to have those rights that everyone else has. We want to contribute to our role to the system. We want to be part of the process. We believe in democracy, all of us. I know you do. And in that regard, we have to get involved in the marijuana party in the next federal election, because as I say, the Alliance, which is heavily represented in Alberta, and the few other positions are taken up by Liberals, those two parties will work together probably for the first time in Parliament to try and recriminalize marijuana. So it is vitally important that we accept the responsibility of being involved in the democratic process. It won't be enough for you to come and see me, though I do appreciate that and I thank you for it, but I really need you to get politically involved. And typically young people are quite cynical. Fewer than 1 in 10 young people under 30 actually vote. That's got to end. Your future, your freedom, the freedom of your parents, the freedom of your children, the freedom of your friends to go about Canadian society without fear is vitally important and will be pivotal in the next election. And after all, we all know what it's like. We all hide. We all have to skulk because we never know who might turn us in for marijuana. We have to smoke and hide. That's no way for a Canadian to live. This is supposed to be the freest country on earth, and I still believe, despite the fact that I have myself been arrested 14 times for marijuana in Canada, jailed 10 times for marijuana, and raided 5 times, and I am still telling you after all that, I believe this is the freest country, the greatest country on earth, where the potential for change is the most obvious and the most rapid and the most accessible to the ordinary person. I mean, I will tell you this, even if I get arrested in a few minutes, I would have been shot dead in other places. I would have been put in jail for life in the United States. So despite the fact that the police and the people are still at odds and that politicians won't reflect our will in Parliament. After all, not one of 301 members of Parliament have ever gotten up and asked the Attorney General, what is the moral basis by which we have persecuted millions of people for 35 years? How has Canada benefited by this continued state of oppression? Where is the benefit financially? Where is the benefit in civil liberties? Where is the benefit to the people on the street? Where is the benefit to the children? Do you know 500,000 children have grown up in the last 35 years in Canada without one of their 2 parents there because they were in jail on drug charges, and in most cases marijuana charges, that parents, I mean, my friend Michael, people say people don't go to jail much anymore for marijuana. Don't believe it. I've gone to jail 4 times already on this tour for just half a gram of pot. People go to jail all the time for pot. People go to jail all the time for growing pot. And after all, what could we smoke if people didn't grow it? It's a terrible hypocrisy to even distinguish between the two. After all, in order to consume it, we need people to grow it. Many, many people who consume it themselves grow it themselves. Do they, by some weird alchemy, become bad people because they grow it to smoke? No. Marijuana cultivation is a noble, honorable thing. It's the oldest plant that's been cultivated by man. Carl Sagan, who smoked every day of his life. By the way, you're in great company. Never say that when people say smoking pot is for unintelligent people or people who are irresponsible. William Shakespeare smoked cannabis. I mean, Jesus Christ bathed in cannabis. Christ means the anointed one. He was anointed in cannabis oil. It grew everywhere in the Middle East where he walked in old Israel. Carl Sagan smoked every day of his life and developed all his scientific theories on marijuana. He smoked every day on the set of Cosmos, which many of you are too young to remember. But it was an Emmy Award-winning television show about the origins of the universe. And he smoked pot every day as before he went on the set. If you took your CD collection and you divided your CD collection into those who smoked marijuana and performed their music and those who did not smoke marijuana and perform their music, every last one of us would take the collection of CDs where the smoking of marijuana contributed to their art. Because otherwise we would eliminate the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, the Doors, every single major artist of the modern era. You would have to eliminate, if you eliminated the pot smokers, every blues album, every black musician that ever lived. Even your Whitney Houston would have to be over there, right? Louis Armstrong especially, Duke Ellington, every black jazz musician, every blues musician smoked marijuana. In fact, just as a brief segue before we get to 420, the origin of jazz and blues comes from the marijuana smoking that occurred when marijuana first came to North America.
It's 420, by the way.
It's 420? Is it really? Let's have a countdown.
It's 19 now.
It's 19, okay. Well, tell you what, here's my wonderful bong here. And you know what I thought? We are all patriotic Canadians, so I want you to sing "O Canada." And I know you're not familiar with singing "O Canada" except at a Calgary Flames game. So let's try and make this a patriotic stand for the freedom that we should all be able to share, that we should all have acknowledged under law. So I'm going to lead you in a chorus of "O Canada," and you're not going to let me continue to sing alone because I don't have a good singing voice, and that would embarrass me. So, and during the, okay, so let's count down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command. Keep going. With glowing hearts. Okay. See to Canadians and to Canadian freedom. North strong and free. Woo! From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
I'm sorry, everybody. Would you please disperse? Unfortunately, we have to.
Mark? Mark?
Remember, you have an obligation to get involved. Make sure it's
Mark!
Buddy.
Bye.
Are you with me?
Yes.
Why don't you gather up the stuff? We'll take you inside too.